Okay, let's unpack this. That art thou, Svedekatu. Right out of the gate, a statement that kind of stops you in your tracks. It's just a tiny glimpse into what we're about to explore today.
Yeah.
The incredibly rich, ancient wisdom of the Upanishads.
And what's fascinating there is that this declaration, it seems simple, right? That art thou. But it holds this profound key.
Right.
A key to understanding the Upanishads. We'll definitely circle back to its full meaning later on.
Okay.
But it immediately signals this deep dive into the nature of self, the nature of reality that these texts offer. It's like the ultimate spoiler alert, for existence.
Absolutely. And our guide for navigating this, profound territory is Archibald Gough's The Philosophy of the Upanishads and Ancient Indian Metaphysics. Now, this isn't your everyday read. Gough's work, it started as articles, didn't it? Back in the late 1800s.
That's right, from the Calcutta Review.
But he digs straight into the original Sanskrit texts. He brings us direct insights from the core Upanishads, Mandukya, Katha, Svetasvatara, Mandukya, Taittiriya, Brihadaranyaka, Chandogya, and Jnana.
Quite a list.
Yeah. And he even includes perspectives from ancient Indian scholars. So we're getting a really grounded perspective here, I think.
Definitely. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, Gough's work is almost like a time capsule, isn't it? It gives us access to how these foundational ideas of Indian philosophy were understood, how they were analyzed well over a century ago, and crucially, based directly on those source materials.
Right.
It lets us see the threads connecting these ancient texts and their enduring relevance.
So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We're zeroing in on the most vital ideas about Brahman, that's the ultimate reality, Maya, which is often described as illusion, Atman, the true self, then metempsychosis or reincarnation, and finally, liberation, also known as Moksha. We're pulling out the essential insights from Gough's exploration to give you a clear, hopefully engaging understanding. Get ready for some serious aha moments, I hope.
Looking forward to it.
I'm really excited to be your host for this deep dive.
And I'm here to provide some context and maybe some deeper analysis as we navigate these fascinating and ultimately really illuminating concepts.
All right, let's dive right in then. A concept that's really central to the Upanishads and maybe a bit different from Western ways of thinking. Metempsychosis. Reincarnation.
Yeah.
Gough points out that the Upanishads are deeply concerned with what they call the miseries of metempsychosis.
The miseries.
Now, the initial Vedic view on what happens after death was quite different, wasn't it?
Oh, yes. Very different. The earlier Vedic tradition, it pictured an afterlife spent, in the realm of yama.
Okay.
Enjoying the company of your ancestors. The idea of a continuous cycle of rebirth, like we think of it now, that just wasn't the primary focus back then.
But that perspective shifted. It evolved. So tell us about how this later understanding of karma and reincarnation developed.
Well, what's fascinating here is the emergence of this really powerful idea that our actions, our karma, they directly shape our future existences.
Okay, cause and effect, basically.
Exactly. Good deeds, it was believed, lead to rebirth in higher states as humans, maybe superhumans, even deities.
Right.
But conversely, negative actions could result in being reborn into, lower forms. Animals, insects.
Wow.
And even, as Gough vividly illustrates vegetal or penal states, he gives some pretty striking examples.
Like what?
Well, he notes that a Brahmin, a priest who drinks too much, might find himself reborn as, say, a worm.
Oof.
While a Brahmin prone to thievery could cycle through lives as spiders and snakes. It really emphasizes the consequences.
Wow, those are some pretty intense images. And the crucial thing here, as I understand it, is that this isn't just about moving up or down some cosmic ladder. It's a seemingly endless cycle, right?
Precisely endless. Even those heavenly paradises, those aren't permanent vacation spots.
Right, not forever.
Both the pleasant and the unpleasant realms are seen as just temporary pit stops in this ongoing journey. The Upanishads highlight this pervasive sense of underlying suffering, dissatisfaction inherent in the cycle.
Even in the good times.
Even moments of joy are seen as fleeting. They ultimately give way to pain, decay, death, and then the inevitable return to birth.
Wow.
As the text itself puts it, omnis creatura ingemissit. All creation groans. It paints a picture of existence that's, not entirely rosy.
It sounds, a bit like a cosmic hamster wheel. You just keep going round and round.
That's a good analogy.
And Gough even touches on parallels between this sort of Asiatic perspective and some European thought. He mentions Hume's descriptions of life's inherent miseries.
Yes, he does draw that parallel.
Yeah.
It's important to grasp this pervasive sense of unease, though. It's the backdrop. It's the problem against which the Upanishads present their path to liberation. This isn't just about acknowledging hardship. It's recognizing the fundamental impermanence and ultimately the unsatisfying nature of existence if we remain caught in this loop.
Okay. And it's interesting that Gough also brings in Western thought, specifically mentioning Pythagorean and Platonic ideas, transmigration in Plato's Phaedo.
Yes, the resonance is definitely there. Socrates, in that dialogue, viewed philosophy as a kind of preparation for death, a purification of the soul.
Right.
But there's a key difference in the ultimate goal. While Plato focuses on the soul's ascent toward like a realm of pure forms, the Upanishadic aim is to break free from the cycle of rebirth altogether. It's not just about a better afterlife, it's about transcending all lives. Think of it as wanting to get off the wheel entirely, not just finding a slightly more comfortable spot on it.
Got it. Get off the hamster wheel completely. So if this cycle of rebirth is the fundamental problem, what's the proposed solution? This brings us to Brahman, doesn't it?
Exactly. Brahman is presented as the sole reality.
The only thing that's truly real.
Essentially, yes. The fundamental source and essence of all being. It's described as pure being, pure thought, pure bliss.
Wow.
Existing beyond the limitations of subject and object, beyond the illusion of the world we perceive. The text even quotes, "All things live upon portions of its joy."
Portions of its joy.
Think of it as the ultimate source code of reality, perhaps.
Yeah.
The fundamental essence from which everything else sort of emanates.
Okay.
Understanding this really shifts your perspective. You stop seeing just isolated objects and start recognizing an underlying unity.
So Brahman is this ultimate underlying reality. What are its key characteristics? How is it described?
The Upanishads describe Brahman as unborn, infinite, imperishable, unattached, invulnerable.
Okay.
And importantly, it's stated that good and evil actions have no impact on it whatsoever. They just don't touch it.
Right. It's beyond that duality.
Precisely. There's a crucial phrase used to describe it. Neti neti. Not this, not that.
Not this, not that.
It highlights its transcendence. It's beyond our ordinary categories of understanding. It's like trying to describe something that's completely outside our normal frameworks of thought.
And Gough also brings in the mystic syllable OM. How does OM fit into this picture of Brahman?
OM. It's presented as a symbolic representation, an image, if you like, of Brahman, composed of the sounds A, U, and M. It's considered incredibly significant, sort of encompassing all speech and being one with all things. Gough notes its role as a tool, a kind of vehicle, to guide the seeker towards gradual liberation, something to focus on.
Okay, so Brahman is the ultimate reality. But, we experience a world that's constantly changing, full of separate things, separate people. This is where Maya comes in, right? The concept of illusion.
Precisely. Maya is described as this inexplicable principle of unreality.
Inexplicable.
Yes, and it's eternally linked with Brahman. The world, our individual lives, they're said to arise from the fictitious union of these two fundamental principles, Brahman and Maya.
So Maya is like a veil, something cast over reality.
In a sense, yes. That's a common way to think of it. It veils the true nature of every being. It presents a bodily counterfeit, a mistaken identity instead.
Okay.
And this illusion, according to the Upanishads, is what keeps us trapped in those long miseries of metempsychosis.
Right, back to the cycle.
Exactly. The world itself is often likened to a succession of dreams or maybe a figment projected by the mind.
Like a mirage.
That's a great analogy. You see a mirage in the desert, it looks like water, feels real for a moment, but it's just a trick of the light, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maya is similar, making us perceive a solid, separate world where, at the deepest level, the Upanishads say everything is interconnected.
And what about Ishvara? Gough mentions Brahman being fictitiously limited by Maya to become Ishvara. Who or what is Ishvara exactly?
Ishvara is presented as the demiurgus, or the world-evolving deity. Essentially the cosmic soul, the architect of the universe, you could say.
Like a creator god.
Well, it's crucial to understand this isn't a personal god in the traditional Western sense. Not a person with intentions and emotions in the same way.
Okay.
Instead, Ishvara is described as the totality of souls in a state akin to dreamless sleep. It's the first manifestation that arises from the interplay between Brahman and Maya.
The first step away from pure Brahman.
You could see it that way. Ishvara is like the cosmic architect, the first manifestation of Brahman through Maya, responsible for the blueprint of the universe, maybe. but not a personal God as we typically think of one.
So there's a kind of hierarchy of manifestation we're talking about here, like steps.
Yes. Gough outlines a series of emanations stemming from Brahman and Maya. This includes Ishvara and then Viraj.
Viraj.
Viraj is described as the mundane egg, or the sum total of all visible physical bodies in the universe.
So the actual physical stuff we see.
Pretty much, yeah. It's a way of explaining the apparent progression from the ultimate unmanifest reality of Brahman to the manifest world we experience, all within this framework of Maya.
Right. Viraj is like the physical universe we can see and touch.
Exactly.
Wow, this is definitely mind-bending stuff. Let's try and bring it back down to the individual level. What about the Atman, the self? How does that relate to Brahman and Maya?
Okay, yes. This is the absolute core of it all. The Upanishads declared that the individual soul, the Atman, is fundamentally, intrinsically one with Brahman.
One and the same.
Yes. Gough uses analogies like the same air being present in multiple different jars or containers.
Okay.
Or the sun's single reflection appearing on many different surfaces of water. It illustrates this underlying unity. There's a really powerful quote Gough includes: "That which sees unseen, hears unheard, thinks unthought upon, knows unknown. That other than which there is none that sees, none that hears, none that thinks, none that knows. That is thyself, the internal ruler, immortal."
Wow. So the deepest you inside, that is Brahman, that universal reality.
Exactly. That's the realization. The Mandukya Upanishad, as Gough points out, describes 4 states of the soul.
4 states.
Yes. The waking state we're usually in, the dreaming state, then dreamless sleep, and ultimately a 4th state, Turiya, which is union with the pure self, pure consciousness.
And he also discusses these wrappers or vestures of the migrating soul. The koshas, what are those all about? Sounds like layers.
That's exactly what they are. The concept of the 5 koshas, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anodaya, describes the different layers or sheaths that sort of obscure our true self.
Okay, what are they?
Gough explains them as the physical body, the one made of food.
Anamaya.
Then the vital life force, Pranamaya. The mind, Manomaya. The intellect of wisdom layer, Manomaya. And finally, the bliss body, Anandamaya.
Like layers of an onion.
That's a perfect analogy. The goal is to progressively peel away these layers through introspection, meditation, understanding,
Right.
like visible things fading away when the sun rises, to reveal the pure Atman at the very core.
It's like stripping away all the things we think we are, our body, our thoughts, our feelings, to find out who we really are underneath it all. And it's incredible that Gough mentions this idea of the self within the heart being simultaneously smaller than a grain of rice and yet greater than the earth and the sky. How can it be both?
Well, these seemingly contradictory descriptions, they highlight the paradoxical nature of the self, don't they?
Yeah.
Its immanence being present right here within you, tiny, and its transcendence being beyond all limitations of size and space, vast.
Wow.
The ultimate aim, as Gough emphasizes, is the direct realization, the experience of this fundamental unity between the individual soul, Atman, and the universal soul, Brahman.
So it's not just understanding it intellectually, like we're discussing now.
No, that's just the start. It's about actually experiencing this connection, this oneness.
And this realization, this direct experience, is what leads to liberation, right? To moksha, the ultimate escape from this cycle of metempsychosis we started with.
Precisely. Liberation is defined exactly as that. Release from the seemingly endless cycle of rebirth.
How is it achieved?
Achieved through the direct recognition of the soul reality of the self. Knowing, truly knowing, that Atman is Brahman.
So what fundamentally changes for someone who achieves this liberation? What's different about a liberated sage?
Well, Gough describes a liberated sage as being completely untouched by merit and demerit, by sin, by the consequences of their actions in this illusory world.
So good deeds, bad deeds, they don't stick anymore.
They're understood to belong to the unreal realm of Maya.
Yeah.
They don't affect the true self. A crucial point here is the significance of gnosis.
Gnosis? Like knowledge?
Yes, but more than just intellectual knowledge. It's direct spiritual knowledge, intuitive understanding. As the text states, gnosis, once arisen, needs nothing farther for the realization of its result.
So once you know, truly know, that's it.
It's a fundamental shift in perspective. The results follow naturally from that realization.
It sounds like this isn't really about adhering to a strict set of rules or performing specific rituals then, but about a profound transformation in understanding.
That's a vital insight, yes. While rituals and studying the Vedas, they have their place, Gough calls them the inferior science.
Inferior, okay.
They're like stepping stones.
Yeah.
But the superior science is the direct knowledge of the imperishable self, the Atman.
Right.
Even the rewards you might gain through rituals, like a temporary stay in some paradise, they're ultimately impermanent, part of the cycle.
Still on the wheel.
Still on the wheel. The true seeker of Brahman must ultimately renounce all these created temporary spheres, look beyond them.
And that powerful statement we started with, that art thou, tat tivam asi.
Yeah.
How does that finally connect with this idea of liberation?
Ah, yes. That art thou is the profound declaration, isn't it, of the fundamental, unbreakable unity between the individual self, the Tao, Svetaketu in the original story,
Right.
and Brahman, the ultimate reality. That.
It's stating the identity.
Exactly. And Gough highlights several beautiful allegories used to illustrate this oneness.
Like what?
Think of bees collecting nectar from all sorts of different flowers, but then it combines into a single unified honey. The individual essences are lost in the whole.
Oh, okay.
Or rivers. They start in different places, have different names, but eventually they all flow into the same vast ocean, losing their individual identities, merging back.
Nice analogies.
And the allegory of a person lost in the wilderness, completely disoriented, who then gets guided back home by someone who knows the way.
Okay.
That emphasizes the crucial role of a spiritual teacher, a guru, in helping one realize this inherent truth, this oneness that's already there.
So it's about finally recognizing this inherent, unbreakable connection that was always present.
Exactly. Recognizing it, experiencing it. And Gough emphasizes that the direct vision of the self within your own heart, that's the only true salvation.
And he even describes the characteristics of this liberated self in these seemingly contradictory ways.
Yes. Motionless yet moving, sleeping yet going everywhere.
Bodiless yet present in all bodies. Unchanging yet amidst all changing things. How does that work?
Well, these seemingly paradoxical attributes arise precisely because the true self transcends the limited categories of our ordinary understanding. It exists beyond the dualities imposed by Maya and its illusory embodiments.
Right. It's beyond this or that.
Exactly. Gough also underscores the necessity of letting go of desires, stilling the constant chatter of the mind, the stream of thoughts.
Quieting the mind.
Yes, to allow the pure self to be reflected, to shine through, unobscured. He even touches on that beautiful allegory of the two birds perched on the same tree.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
One bird represents the individual soul, eating the fruits of the tree, experiencing the results of actions, pleasure, and pain. The other bird, representing the cosmic soul, or Ishvara, just sits and watches, detached. They reside together in the body, the tree.
Interesting. One caught up, one observing.
A metaphor for the potential detachment even while living in the world.
And Gough also briefly addresses some of the philosophical pushback, right, against these ideas. He mentions nihilistic philosophies that denied a permanent self.
Yes, it's important to see this wasn't developed in a vacuum. The Vedic perspective, as Gough presents it, firmly refutes the idea that something real, an entity, can ultimately arise from nothingness, from non-entity.
Okay.
He also briefly touches on the Sankhya philosophy, another major ancient Indian school, and its concepts of prakriti, which is like primal nature or matter, and purushas, multiple individual consciousnesses.
How does that relate?
Gough clarifies the Vedantic view, which often sees prakriti as basically synonymous with Maya and Purusha, the ultimate consciousness, as ultimately one with Brahman, not multiple separate ones.
Ah, okay. Different interpretations.
Exactly. He even mentions Kapila, the traditional founder of Sankhya, and notes how the Jnana Upanishads seems to engage with some of these Sankhya-like ideas. It shows there was a rich tapestry of philosophical debate happening even back then.
It really sounds like it. And the perennial question, why is there inequality and suffering in the world? If everything is Brahman, why does it look like this?
Right. Gough says the Upanishads attribute that not just to Maya as a blanket illusion, but specifically to the law of karma.
Back to karma?
Yes, the accumulated past actions of individual souls playing out over lifetimes. And crucially, this cycle is considered beginningless. There wasn't a starting point to it.
So it's not Brahman's fault, or even Maya's directly, but the result of past actions within the illusion.
That's the framework presented. The ultimate conclusion, though, as Gough presents it from the Upanishads, is that the fundamental aim is to directly realize this profound unity with Brahman.
To wake up from the dream.
To wake up from the dream, exactly. To transcend the illusory world of duality, of separation, and the inherent suffering of metempsychosis.
Wow. Okay. We have covered a huge amount of ground in this deep dive into Gough's analysis of the Upanishads. That was a lot.
Dense material, certainly.
Profound. Definitely. So thinking about it all, what are maybe the couple of most impactful insights that you think someone listening should really take away and maybe chew on?
Good question. I think two core insights really stand out for me from Gough's presentation.
Okay.
Firstly, the truly transformative idea of the deep interconnectedness of all things, this fundamental unity of your true self, the Atman, with the ultimate reality, Brahman, that art thou.
Right, that underlying oneness.
Exactly. And secondly, flowing from that, the understanding that the material world as we perceive it, with all its apparent solidity and separation, is at its core an illusion.
Maya.
The dream, the mirage.
Yes. And recognizing that can profoundly shift our perspective on the nature of our experiences, our attachments, perhaps even our suffering.
Those are incredibly powerful concepts, and it really makes you wonder, if the world as we perceive it is fundamentally an illusion, Maya, how does that practically change the way we should approach our day-to-day lives? Does it? Should it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? A
Yeah.
seriously thought-provoking idea to grapple with.
And considering the immense emphasis the Upanishads place on inner realization, on gnosis, that direct experience, it does raise a crucial question about the role, if any, that our external actions, our ethics, our interactions in the world play in this personal journey towards meaning and ultimately liberation. Where do they fit in?
Definitely something profound to ponder long after this conversation ends. If you found this deep dive into the Upanishads as fascinating as I have, I would absolutely encourage you to explore these ancient texts further.
Absolutely.
The Katha Upanishad, the Isha Upanishad, both of which we touched upon, they could be fantastic starting points for your own exploration.
And remember, the journey of understanding these profound concepts is ultimately a personal one. Allow these ideas to resonate within you, reflect on them, and see what unique insights begin to emerge for you.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. A massive thank you for joining us on this incredible exploration. It's been fascinating.
My pleasure entirely.
Until our next dive, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring. So what does this all mean? I guess it means there's a universe of wisdom waiting just beneath the surface, right?
May your own path towards deeper understanding be filled with profound insight and discovery.